Good evening. I would like to welcome everyone to the June 13th council meeting of the City of Mayfield Heights. May I have a roll call, please?
Mr. Balestria.
Present.
Mr. DeJohn.
Here.
Mr. Mano.
Here.
Mr. Monaco.
Here.
Mrs. Sabetta.
Here.
Mrs. Snyder.
Here.
Mrs. Teresi.
Here.
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Next is the approval of the minutes from our special council meeting of April 18th, 2022. I hope everyone has had time to read those minutes over. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
Moved.
Moved by Mr. Mano,
Second.
second by Mr. Balestria. Are there any suggested changes, amendments, or deletions to those minutes? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Abstain.
Abstain. We had two absences. And opposed? These minutes have been approved as written. There was the next, we will be moving to the minutes from May 23rd of '22, and there's some question about the accuracy of these minutes, so I'd like to put these minutes on the table. Do I have a motion to place these on the table?
Move.
Moved by Mr. DeJohn, second by Mr. Mano. Roll call to place these minutes on the table.
Mr.
yes.
Balestria. Mr. DeJohn.
Yes.
Mr. Mano.
Yes.
Mr. Monaco.
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta.
Yes.
Mrs. Teresi.
Abstain.
Mrs. Snyder.
Yes. Okay. Next, we will move to correspondence and announcements. Does any member of council have any correspondence or announcements? Mr. DeJohn.
Just one thing. The administration is aware that some of our meetings are not being televised on Spectrum, and a resident has contacted me about that, which I've let the administration know about that, so hopefully they rectify that real soon. Thank you.
Okay. Mayor, should we contact?
Was it just the one meeting, Bob?
No, it's all of them that she can't see, I believe,
On YouTube?
on Spectrum.
on Spectrum, gotcha, okay.
I've indicated to her that they are on YouTube, but she's having a problem seeing on Spectrum, so I don't know.
Okay.
Thank you.
Are there any further correspondence or announcements? Right. Next, we will move to reports of officers, starting with the mayor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good evening, everyone. As I mentioned last meeting, we did have our shred and recycling event on May 14th, and I did get the final numbers. We had over 10,000 pounds of paper and over 5,100 pounds of computer equipment, so it was very successful. We exceeded last year's collections. So thanks to all the residents who participated and everybody who helped out, service department, and Mary Beth Oshway, my assistant, so I thank her for that. You will see several new businesses on Mayfield Road this month. They're going up like crazy, which is a good thing. Uptown Cheapskates is 6383 Mayfield Road. Was scheduled to open June 2nd. Grand opening for Primo's Pizza, 5867 Mayfield Road, was also June 2nd. Alpha B Fitness opened at 5869 Mayfield Road on June 8th. Raising Cane's, which I'm sure nobody noticed, is open, and we cut that ribbon on June 10th. And Crumble Cookie also had the ribbon cutting on June 10th, so those are all open. 1241 Som Center is Crumble Cookie. It's a great thing to see all these businesses opening in the city. The fire department will conduct annual fire hydrant flushing beginning June 15th. The process is very important to ensure that all the hydrants in the city are in good working order. So you will see signs posted on the streets 3 days prior to flushing. And we're gearing up for Unity Days. I'm sure Mr. Manno will probably have something to say about that in his report. We will have our parade on Sunday, and we will have fireworks also. And we will have a groundbreaking for the Aquatic and Community Center on Friday, June 24th at 4 p.m. And that concludes my report.
Are there any questions for the mayor? Law Director, Mr. Murphy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have no report this evening, but I would request that council adjourn into executive session at the end of the regular business to discuss property acquisition and economic development.
Okay, thank you. All right, Director of Finance, Mrs. Scully, she's our Assistant Finance Director.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have no report this evening.
Thank you. Any questions for Mrs. Scully? All right, moving to reports of committees, commissions, and boards. If your committee has met, please, this would be the time to tell your report. Building Committee, Mr. Monaco.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have no report this evening.
Did you want to tell your, no report? Okay, thank you. Finance and Audit Committee, Mr. DeJohn.
Thank you, Madam President. The committee did not meet.
Thank you, Mr. DeJohn. Legislative Committee, Mrs. Sabetta.
Thank you, Madam President. No report.
Thank you. Public Works and Service Committee, Mr. Balistreo.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The committee did not meet, but we do have Resolution 2022-42, which is part of our 2022 road program that I encourage council to pass this evening. Also, I asked Mr. Gerson to give an update on the road program, the sidewalk program, and dye testing programs during my report. Motion A is also on the agenda to be rejected as the bids were higher than 110% of the engineer's estimate for Part A2 of the 2022 road program. So, Madam Chair, I would ask if you'd give permission to Mr. Gerson to give an updated report at this time.
Yes, Mr. Gerson. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As you know, construction season has begun. We have a couple projects that are underway, a couple projects that are going to be started in the next few weeks and months coming forward. We've been bidding out the road program. As you know, from last council, or last time we met with the road program, we split it into two, and before you have the results of those two, one is able to be awarded if you decide to, and the other one is over 110% to the engineer's estimate. And so we'd have to either rebid that or choose not to bid it out. But my recommendation would be to rebid that, and I'll have some more information on that during the motion. The other projects that are currently going on are the resurfacing of State Route 91, started, last week. There were some initial problems with the maintenance of traffic. We did speak with ODOT, and I think we have a resolution going forward on that. We've asked them to place a person at Mayfield Road and Somme when they're in that area to make sure that that's not backing up on Mayfield Road. Obviously, there's a lot of traffic coming through, and then we also asked them to make sure that they have someone near the hospital entrance so that when ambulances come through or emergency vehicles, they can get through. I was there on a couple days where, at least on one of the occasions, I did witness a ambulance that was delayed getting in, and so they've got that in. They've also, one of the things they need to do is that when they have intersections, signalized intersections that are being occupied, they need to have a law enforcement officer. That's in the contract. The contractor did not have that. NODOT advised them that if they do that again, they'll be shut down and face issues from there. So hopefully that'll have more smoothness going forward. I did drive through there probably about a half hour, 45 minutes ago. They were still working, and it looks like it's going a little smoother. But obviously, if you have concerns or if you have complaints during the time, please forward them to me or the mayor, and we'll try to address them as we can. On that note, I know that there are some issues that have come up. There's a pipe that collapsed near the intersection of Marsall and Somme. So if you're driving there, it's on the southwest corner, so there's a bunch of cones there. I've asked the Cuyahoga Department of Utilities to televise the pipe. We believe it's about a 12 to 18-inch pipe going to a catch basin, and that'll have to be repaired. We're going to have Carbo do that as a force account through ODOT, and we could get reimbursement through the Cuyahoga Department of Utilities Stormwater Fund if you may choose, but that would come as a change order. But if you don't want us to do it, just let me know. We can tell them not to do that, but I wouldn't recommend that. That's probably the smoothest way to go. The next project, we have a pre-con coming up for the TLCI project, which are the intersections that we've talked about for a number of meetings. I believe that's on Thursday of this week. Once we have that meeting, I can update you on when that project will start and when the schedule is and how that'll coincide with what's going on some. The one project that we have awarded is Road Program B. That's in the Fairfield neighborhood, just north off of Gates Mills. Gates Mills Boulevard. We have spoken to the contractor. He's looking at an early July start on that. A lot of the contractors are just swamped right now, and we want to make sure when he gets in, he or she can go ahead and do the work at a timely manner and get it done. For road program A1 would be CA Agresta Construction Company, if you so choose to award it. We haven't spoken to them on when they would be starting because we haven't awarded the contract to them, but that would be the next thing we would do. And then the last one is on A2, which we split up, which was Woodhawk, Mayfield Road, and Ridgeberry. We did have one contractor, and again, I'll answer questions on that as we go through. We did have one contractor that bid it. They were just slightly over the 110% of the engineer's estimate. And speaking to some of the contractors that did not bid it, seems we only had one. Basically, we got mixed signals. Some were interested in doing Woodhawk. Some were interested in Woodhawk, but not Mayfield Road. And so my recommendation would be, unfortunately, to split that into two parts again. You get the contractors that are maybe more suited for Mayfield Road concrete with the traffic, and then you get the contractors that are maybe more suited for the type of construction, which is a little bit different on Woodhawk. Doesn't keep the same contractor for bidding on both, but hopefully that may get contractors that can do a smaller project or a project that's maybe more in their liking. In terms of the sidewalk program, we're getting ready to go out for bid with that. We did have the Ashcroft area. They are finishing up the fiber optic over there. I did meet with a couple of neighbors that had some issues with the restoration on that, so we're working with the contractor to make sure that's restored right and the sidewalks are repaired as they need to be. Finally, on the dye testing program, we're working on getting that moving. As you probably know, there's a lot of lack of help out there, so the contractor that we chose, which is AECom, we're working with getting a schedule on them, but we fully expect to have that done this summer, which I know is a delay, but trying to get out there and get mobilized and getting that work done as soon as we can is what we're trying to do. With that, I'll try to answer any questions, or if you want to defer the questions to when the resolutions come up, either the resolution or the motion, that would be fine also.
Does any member of council have any questions right now? Mr. DeJong?
Thank you for your report, Mr. Gerson. Just one quick question. Why are you seeing the lack of contractors bidding on these projects? I see on the A1 there was only two,
Yeah.
and one for the A2 contract, so.
Yeah, we do talk to the contractors, try to get an idea. What I would say is that we have a lot of contractors out there that are just frankly, they bid a lot of work last year. What was happening in the COVID time, which everybody hears COVID, it sounds like an excuse, but what I'm seeing is that a lot of contractors were buying contracts. In other words, they were bidding contracts to get work for code because they were concerned that they weren't gonna have any work in the coming years. In most of the cities, we haven't, at least the cities that I have, we haven't dropped off on work, and I've seen that in some other cities. It's not maybe true with all cities, but that's been the general trend. And I think what happened, at least I can tell you, in one of my other cities, we bid out a road program, and the contractor just couldn't simply finish it, and so we deferred it to this year. So that contractor is working on finishing up a program from last year, again, with other work they've got. And then we also had another contractor on the same city where they bid it, and they just said, hey, we can start, but with the early winter we had last year, it was not recommended. And I think we've seen that on a lot of projects where the contractors just got too busy. And looking at even the timing that we bid a little late this year, but even some of the projects were about the same time or even later than we bid these, and we had positive responses. And so when we bid out the first two road programs, we did A and B, and they were fairly large projects. I think one was like 2.5 million was the engineer's estimate. The other one was a little over $1 million, $1.2 million, $1.1 million, something like that. What we got feedback from them is that, yeah, they'd like to do them, but they just don't have the equipment, time, or labor to get a project done that soon or done in this zone. That's why we broke them down into smaller projects, thinking that, okay, well, if you can't do a $2.5 million project, maybe a 1.6 would fit you in with your contractors. It's interesting, we kind of went into the season thinking that the asphalt prices were gonna be high. The concrete prices are high also. We're seeing a lot of fluctuation in the asphalt prices, just with the oil prices kind of fluctuating, but we've also seen some good asphalt prices, and so we're seeing a lot of discrepancy between one and the other, where you typically see it pretty close if you compared, when we break down the unit prices, you can kind of see, what the contractor was bidding for each unit of asphalt and what he was bidding for concrete. So I don't know for sure because I don't do the work, but it seems to be a lot of labor, and mostly labor over materials, but that may change depending on, what happens in the near future. I know there's been talk of a concrete shortage. I don't know if that'll happen. Hopefully not, because we got, we and many other cities have a lot of projects going on, and not only with road programs, but other projects. So typically I don't like being the low bidder. I never like being the low bidder, but unfortunately that's been the case. And typically I try to give you a good engineer's estimate where it is, but this year has just been tough trying to chase those prices. And as soon as we get them out, a week later you have another inflationary, and gas prices are another big thing that's just beating up the contractors as their equipment runs on gas and diesel, and so their costs are double what they were. So, and it changes next week, unfortunately. So it's a tough bidding season. We're trying to do what we can, and I think we're on the right approach. We did get, 2 this time. I was surprised we only got 1, but, it is what it is. We had a lot more that took them out, and I just think that they, backed away based on, what we had at the time, so. So I don't know if that answers your question or gives you some insight.
It did, but I have another question about the catch basin.
Is it-
On Som Center.
Does
Go ahead.
any member of council have any questions before?
I do, but it's okay.
Go ahead. All right, thank you.
Thank you. It's a pipe going to the catch basin that collapsed, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I wasn't out there when it happened, but what I understand, the mill that basically mills the asphalt off is a very heavy piece of equipment. And when it was coming over in the shoulder, no fault of the contractor, but pushed it down. So it wasn't an active sinkhole that at least I was aware of. So it may have, most likely it was probably there, but no one noticed it. So, but it's about we don't have the camera in there yet, but you can see there's probably about a 3 or 4 foot hole on the side of the road, and there's probably 5 or 6 cones around it right now. And there's a catch basin just to the
Will the
right.
sewer district help us with the repair of that, or?
So, what I would say is we go through the Cuyahoga Department of Utilities, at least for them to investigate, do the televising of the pipe to see how much is damaged. And then the contractor that's out there, we would have them repair it. But we have a surplus in storm sewer fund with the Colorado Department of Utilities in which we can ask for reimbursement if it's done through a contractor that's not of the city and they can track the costs. And so that was how I'd recommend it. So what would happen is, and I don't have costs on that yet, and I don't have the television, but I wanted to bring it up as I know it is. The contractor would do the cost. Typically, it's done on what they call a force account. So contractor has unit rates for what they do. The inspector makes sure that the hours he works and the contractor would get paid on that. And that would be a 100% cost to the city. And then the city would pay that. You would pay ODOT to pay that back, and then we could get a reimbursement for that. So that's the way I would anticipate going with that. The sewer district, if you did it through community cost share, you could do that, but by the time you put in for a community cost share for a request for it and get that back, you'd have to have council approve it, and it would be a time concern that by that time that road may be done, and it might be tough to reimbursement. And again, it's whether it comes out of that bucket or that bucket. We have a lot more money in the county Department of Utilities at this point, and they'll be out there anyways to do some televising anyways. So that would be my recommendation on it.
Okay, thank you.
Should we know that before the next meeting?
So what I would say is, we gotta repair it, so I would
Right.
just wanna let you know that it would be a cost that'll be coming up, unless you tell me now that you don't wanna repair it, and, I wouldn't recommend that, but if you so chose, we would have to repair it at some point, you know.
Right.
It's not something that's gonna go away, but, we should have, I would hope we'd have the numbers of what that would cost once it's done. And I'll try to get an estimate, and I can give you an email if that would help you, try to give you an idea.
Yeah,
But
that'd
again,
be
it
great.
would be a reimbursement for us.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Monaco?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Gerson, do we have a policy to notify the residents prior to work starting in front of their yard? I had a couple residents call me, either there was some sidewalk done or, even a street, and they didn't know anything about it. Are we notify them and let them know that there is something happening there?
Yeah, so it depends on the project. I did get a couple calls from people on SOM. So the SOM project is being run by ODOT. They do put up their mobilization signs. They have a little different policy than we do. When we do a project on our street, so if we're doing a road program where we're in charge of the contractor, we do have them send out letters to the residents on their mailboxes. Now, they're kind of a hanger, and I do have, instances where they put them at the front door and everybody always goes in their side door and they never got the notice. That's a general notice saying, hey, work will be starting, on your road in the next 24 or 48 hours. Typically, we try to give them more time than that, but and then if the work is being done by the contractor where they would be replacing their driveway, or if the road is being taken out right in front of the driveway, not milling, but where they wouldn't have access to it, we ask the contractor that they notify them 48 hours prior to them being out of their driveway. And what the process is, again, they give them a hanger, they give them a notice, and then the day that they're actually gonna do it, they would knock on the door and say, hey, we're getting ready to dig up your driveway. Do you need to get out? Do you not? And that usually works pretty well. Even if they didn't get the hanger, they at least get an opportunity to get out. It's not perfect because, obviously if you didn't get the hanger and you're getting knocked on the door at 8 o'clock in the morning, that it's inconvenient, but again, they've been notified in that manner. In terms of projects regarding sidewalks, we do that also. We would do that typically on a sidewalk program, typically only in where we're doing their drive apron or their sidewalk in front of their drive where they don't have access. We don't necessarily put out a flyer to everybody on the street because not everybody's getting their sidewalk done, but I think through social media, we try to post what's going on in the neighborhoods. But there are other projects that are not necessarily run by us that get different notifications. The gas line on Som Center, I know they send out letters typically 30 days in advance, and then they start the work, and a lot of times that's forgotten. So I don't know if there was a certain instance, maybe I've hit on a couple of those. I know I did talk to a couple residents on Som and, apologize that they didn't get personal notices, which I think probably they're used to. It's something that we could probably look at. What I'll say on the Som project is that It came up pretty quick. They had a pre-con and the contractor didn't make the pre-con, and then they had another pre-con and they started the following week right away. And so, but again, it's a project that we have some control, but not a lot on slowing the contractor up. So, so I don't know if that helps answer some of your questions or if you have some recommendations that could help.
Thank you. Any further questions, Mr. Gerson? Thank you very much for your report.
Thank you. If you
If
have
you
any other
could just-
questions, please email me or call me as some of you have done before.
If you could just periodically update us in the email, that would be wonderful, especially after we break for summer. That would be great.
Yeah, that'll be, you'll be getting some, if you get tired of my emails, just let me know.
Okay.
If
No,
I can do that.
We appreciate it.
Thank
Thank you. Okay, Safety and Transportation Committee, Mrs. Tressi. On Parks and Recreation, Mr. Mano. Sorry, I forgot about you. You have a report, I know.
The pool has opened, camps are underway, and summer is officially here in our Recreation Department. Unity Days is around the corner, June 24th through the 26th. Please check the website for a full schedule. Fireworks will be on Saturday, June 25th at dusk. The parade will be on Sunday, June 26th at 1 p.m. We are looking for adult volunteers to assist with this year's event. If you are interested in volunteering, give the Recreation Department a call at 440-442-2627 for further information. Or you can go onto the website, www.mayfieldheights.org, or give us a call. But I think everybody's looking forward to a good time with Unity Days this year. That's my
Thank you,
report.
Mr. Mano. Are there any questions? Okay, thank you. Now we will move to Safety and Transportation, Mrs. Tressi.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Mr. Monaco and I met with Chief Mealy and Captain Paquette on June 6th here in Council Chambers. We had a number of items that we discussed that day. We learned a lot about the goals and the focus of the department. The chief has been working on creating a lot more teamwork and fairness in the department, and he feels that the morale of the team has been raised. We also learned from Chief Mealy and Captain Paquette that they applied for the Urban Air Security Initiative Grant, which would allow the city to transition from the 400 megahertz to 800 megahertz radio band, which is really very important. The police department would finally, if we do upgrade to this 800 megahertz, we would be able to communicate with the fire department. Chief Elliott also came to our meeting and supported the need for the transition to 800 megahertz radios, since the fire department and the police department have not been able to communicate on the radio since 1993. So the reality is that our fighter fires go out into a fire, and if it turned out to be more than a fire, they have no weapons and they would need police backup, and it would be the right decision to have 800 megahertz for both fire and police department. Currently, there are only two communities that are on a 400 megahertz radio band, Mayfield Heights and Bedford. Lyndhurst will be switching over next month. Captain Paquette and the chief also requested portable radios for all 39 sworn officers, 22 auxiliary officers, and several spare radios for their grant. They also requested radios for all of the cruisers, unmarked detective vehicles, and the dispatch center. The grant is through the Cuyahoga Emergency Service Advisory Board, and they are the final decision makers on which community is awarded the grant. And they're also the decision maker on the manufacture of the radios that we get. The chief would love to have Motorola, but we don't know for sure if that's going to happen. The chief is happy that we'll be receiving these 39 portable radios for the sworn officers, but at one point in time, he'd like to come back to council at a later date to get the approval for the additional batteries, spare radios, and radios for our auxiliary. Approval by council tonight for the grant is on the agenda. The department will also work on getting price quotes for the additional 17 car radios, 5 spare portable radios, and 15 spare batteries. And that estimated cost would be between $110,000 and $120,000, and that part would be the city's responsibility in the future. They did a great PowerPoint presentation on the happenings in the department. For the dispatch renovation, orders have been placed and expect arrival by fall on what was ordered. It's taking 8 to 12 months to get some of the needed items for this renovation. They have added one additional dispatch station in their renovation, and there are 2 companies that have bid on that renovation for the dispatch area. The department would also like to do a small renovation in the lobby area, which has not been done since 1985. Currently, the department has just the walk-up window and one small interview room in the lobby, and they would like to see an additional private interview room added. Again, that would be a cost to the city. We also learned about handgun options that would be beneficial for the department. Instead of using laser sights, which are the red dot, the department would like to purchase optics for the guns, which are much more accurate, at a cost of $450 per gun, and that would be a capital request in the future, possibly next year. That way the department could utilize some of the range budget that they have in each year to purchase these optics. We also learned about patrol rifles, AR-15 rifles. That would be a capital expense in the 2023 budget. The department averages 10 to 15,000 rounds per year, and the last time they were at the range, one of the rifles turned out to be inoperable, so they're putting pieces and parts together to make sure that some of the rifles are working. The cost, again, would be between $2,200 and $2,500 each. It would be at the cost of the city, and that would be in the future, possibly 2023. And lastly, we spoke about the Victims Advocate Grant. The department has received this grant for many years, but the award has been reduced each year. For the year 2018 to 2019, we received $90,000. In 2019 to 2020, the grant was reduced to $83,000. And for 2020 to 2021, the grant was further reduced to $55,000. And for this year, the 2021-2022 year, the award was for $36,000. So it has dramatically decreased, and the grant runs out in October. So we don't know what next year's grant will be, the amount of next year's grants. Currently, we have 2 part-time advocates who work on some of the crimes in the city, as well as issues with mental health issues. The individuals work very closely on some of these cases, and they really are a resource to the officers. So we're hoping that this grant, which comes through the Ohio Attorney General's office, it's not reduced any further than what it already has been, and the department would like to keep that resource funded each year at one amount, like $50,000, and then whatever the grant is would help if we kept it at a more stable amount of money. And they feel that this resource is very beneficial to the department. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. That was a good meeting you guys had.
It was a great meeting. We had a great PowerPoint. Chief Elliott was there, added his comments, and the chief and Captain Paquette did a great job. We really learned a lot. We were there, I think, an hour and a half. It was great.
Good.
And the chief is here if you'd like to ask him any
Are
questions.
there any questions for Mrs. Tressi or Chief Mealy? Mr. DeJohn?
I don't know if I should wait till it comes up, but the grant from the Cuyahoga County Emergency Service Advisory Board, I have some questions about that grant. So I know, other than the matching $78,000, is that correct, that we have to match?
It's an estimate of what the cost is for the 39 radios. We don't know what brand, so they're gonna go with the lowest bidder. They're estimating that 39 radios with 1 battery for each radio is gonna cost $78,000. Most certainly, it's probably not gonna be Motorola, because that wouldn't be the cost for Motorola. So we'll get a brand that's gonna be cheaper, but, you know, we don't know that they're gonna be any less, you know, of a product for us. I think they're gonna work fine. The fact that we have 800 megahertz is really the thing we were going for.
So other than that, is there any other requirements for the grant that, because we don't have a copy of the grant here, obviously, so we don't know what's in there, so is there any other requirements?
The requirement is we have to be up and running within 2 years of accepting the grant. We estimate that the dispatch center will be up and running by then, most certainly, so we'll have that capability.
That's the only requirement?
That's it, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
And we have, I'm sorry, we also have to be able to provide any additional cost. So if there's repairs to the radios, that's on us. All the cars are gonna need to be switched over to 800 megahertz, that's on us. Any spare batteries, spare radios, that's on us. They're only covering the 39 radios with 1 battery each.
Okay, thank you.
What's the turnaround time to see if we receive the grant?
For receiving the
Yeah,
radios,
The radios, or yeah, the grant.
they're probably looking at about a year until we receive those, which will coincide with the dispatch center being done. It'll actually, timing-wise, it'll probably work out really well for us.
Okay, great, thank you. All right, we'll move to Board of Zoning Appeals. Mrs. Sabetta.
Thank you, Madam President. The Board of Zoning will meet here tomorrow in council chambers at 7 p.m. There are several items on the agenda. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Sabetta. Planning Commission, Mr. Balestrea.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have no report. Planning Commission did not meet, and right now, we are not scheduled to have a meeting as we have no agenda for next week as well.
Thank you. At this time, we will proceed to the public portion of the meeting. Pursuant to City Code, each person will be allotted 5 minutes to speak, with a maximum of 30 minutes allotted for the entire public portion. If you are here in connection with an agenda item, this is your opportunity to address council. However, please note that this is not an opportunity for debate or slighted comments. If you would like to be heard this evening and have not done so, please fill out a form located at the back table at the public entrance of the council chamber. During the public portion, I will call each of you that are wishing to speak to the podium. Please state your name and address for the record and speak clearly into the microphone. It is now 7:40. I will open up the public portion. Can I please have Judy Amsel? Hi. Just
Name and address.
please state your name and address.
Judy Amsel, 1628 Roselawn Road, Mayfield Heights. Moved there in August 1971, just before my older daughter started kindergarten. The neighborhood has changed a bit since then. We don't have a giant green slide anymore. I don't know how many of you remembered that, but that was absolutely super. I like the changes. We moved to Mayfield Heights because we like the area, we like the diversity in the houses, and the closeness of the freeway, the stores, locations close to parks, all kinds of things. And it's been great. The schools were great. My daughters went through them and did quite well. And we see changes have gone on since then. Some of them have been very good. Some of them a bit questionable. But on the whole, I like it. And one of the things we've noticed is that I don't have grandchildren. I'm not going to be having grandchildren, so the things I'm concerned about aren't for my children, they're for your children and your grandchildren. And a lot of the things, the problems, are things that are not caused by Mayfield Heights, but we're the victims of it. And that's probably things like climate change. We have rain garden in the backyard, and I like the one you have in the front yard. But we're not getting as many birds and things this year, or bugs, or butterflies. But the main thing, we came here a couple of years ago, we wanted to get solar panels on the house to try to decrease the amount of electricity that was being used from the usual sources. We had to go through it with the Architectural Review Board, and it was not a very pleasant experience. The city would not allow any to be on the front of the house. Our house faces east, which means we don't get any of the morning sun. By having it only in the back, we get a reduced amount than we normally would get Over the last couple of years since we've had them, some of you have gone through periods when you've had power outages. We've had calls from the city that there's going to be a power outage. We didn't have a power outage at our house. It worked out fine. We've had very low bills. Some months we don't have any electrical bills at all. And we wish that having solar power, which is getting to, it's a national problem, it's a national situation, and to be able to take full advantage of them, I think would benefit not only us individually, but eventually help the people coming up through these things. The neighborhood does have one of the big changes is a lot of young children on our street that we didn't have for quite a while. There were kids when we moved in, and then there's a dry period. The area is now much more diverse, and there are a lot more kids, and I'm thinking of their future. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mrs. Amsel. Next, Mr. Travis Slaughter.
Travis Slaughter, 6629 Vala Vista Drive. I did try to apply for solar panels on my house, and I was denied because they're ugly. I couldn't put them up at all. The only side that faces the sun is the front of the house, up by the street. So I didn't even have the option to put them on the back. One of the things that was questioned was the property values. The architectural board was worried about it not helping the neighborhood property values. Well, it doesn't. It helps the house that you put the solar panels on. National average is 4%. If I could put solar panels on my house, it would have been worth 4% more. That's pretty much my spiel.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Deborah Kramer.
Can I pass out my papers now?
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll share.
Thanks a lot, Deb.
We'll remember.
Did you want to put the picture up? Okay.
Thank you.
We want to lower the lights.
Yes.
Mr. Gerson, can you lower the lights for us? Thank you.
Pull it towards you, Deborah.
Oh, she got him.
There you go.
I didn't know that.
Okay, thanks. My name is Deborah Kramer. I live at 1110 Belrose Road, Mayfield Heights. I am a proud 59-year resident of the city of Mayfield Heights. And I am here to respectfully request that this city council create and pass an ordinance for the use of solar panels within the city. In 2020, I requested approval for solar panels and was approved for the back of my home, but denied for the front by the Architectural Board of Review. This denial appears to be based solely on aesthetics, without regard for the value of solar energy. Without an ordinance, that board has denied many requests, my request and the request of at least 3 others, we're here, who have applied for panels on the front or side of their house during the last 2 years. I put a solar system on the back of my house at that time and would like to complete it by adding panels to the front. These 2 pictures show my house, my panels on the back. There are my panels on the back, and this is where I'd like to, locate them on the front, in that middle section. Since my house faces east, I cannot get any morning sun on my panels. Beginning around noon, the sun hits my panels for several hours, but then is blocked by the old-growth trees in my backyard. I am producing only half of the energy I could generate if I was allowed to complete my system. Any resident of the city with houses facing either east or west would be in the same situation. Any resident whose house faces south would not be able to generate much power at all. The only residents who would be able to have an efficient system would be those which face north and have no trees on the south side of their home. I'm asking you, the elected council members of this city, to address this issue. I have been told various forms of, "We are working on it," for 2 years, so I'm here to ask you to work harder and to work faster. Our world needs to use solar, renewable energy, and the city of Mayfield Heights is stopping its residents from doing so. In my 2020 letter, I shared, quote, "My contractor is a leader in renewable energy and has consulted with various cities to help them create reasonable guidelines which allow homeowners to have solar systems that are aesthetically appealing, safe, and functional. He is reputable and has presented nationally. He said he would work with the city, which I stated in my letter as a dated June 5th, 2020. You have a copy of both of those letters, the first to the Architectural Board of Review and the second to the mayor a year ago and 2 years ago. So I have a couple other pictures. These pictures show skylights in front of some of the homes in my neighborhood, one of them directly across the street from me. I hope you can see that they are not degrading the quality of my neighborhood, and I believe that my solar panels would not degrade it earlier. As you can see, the solar panels look just like my little skylight there on the back, only bigger. So I hope you will take action on this front, and I appreciate your attention. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Kramer. We can definitely discuss it, and we would have to create legislation, so we'll maybe send it to a committee and talk further about it. Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to be heard this evening? You can just come forward. You could bring me the paper. It's okay. Please state your name and address for the record.
Yeah. My name is Chad Lichten, and I live at 6295 Fairhaven Road. I don't have much to say today, and in no way am I putting an opinion on the previous speeches when I just wanted to say I love Mayfield Heights. I've lived here most of my life, unlike my neighbor who has 6 homes and doesn't actually live here. I love it. I think, at least if you compare it to all the other suburbs, we're probably one of the very best in Northeast Ohio. Just want to say, when I drove from my home to here, it's a very short drive, and it's so pretty tonight. Mayfield is a very beautiful place, and I just think we ought to keep it as beautiful as it always should be. That's all.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I think we all feel the same way. Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to be heard this evening? Okay. It is 7:50, and I will close the public portion. Moving to resolutions, beginning with Resolution 2022-39, Mr. Murphy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Resolution 2022-39, a resolution authorizing the mayor to enter into an amendment to the agreement with Glaus Pyle, Schomer, Burns, and DeHaven, Inc., DBA GPD Group, to provide professional consulting engineering services consisting of the design of renovations to the Police Dispatch Center and declaring an emergency. First reading.
Is there a motion to suspend the rules?
Moved.
Moved by Mr. Mano, second by Mrs. Teresi. Roll call on the motion to suspend.
Mr. Mano.
Yes.
Mr. Balestria.
Yes.
Mr. DeJohn.
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta.
Yes?
Mrs. Teresi.
Yes.
Mr. Monaco.
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder.
Yes. Is there a motion to approve?
Move.
Moved by Mr. Monaco, second by Mrs. Sabetta. Back in March of 2022, there was additional services from our engineering groups for the renovations of the police dispatch area, not to exceed $4,950. The GPD group provided us with a letter that explains this. Is there anything anyone would like to add to this, Mayor? Any questions from council? Okay, roll call on the motion to approve.
Mr. DeJohn.
Yes.
Mr. Monaco.
Yes.
Mrs. Teresi.
Yes.
Mr. Balestria.
Yes.
Mr. Mano.
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta.
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder.
Yes. This resolution has been approved. Resolution number 2022-40, Mr. Murphy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Resolution 2022-40, a resolution authorizing the mayor to enter into a contract with Russ Bassett Corporation for the purchase of dispatch consoles and dispatch furniture for use by the Mayfield Heights Police Department and declaring an emergency. First reading.
Is there a motion to suspend the rules? Moved by Mrs. Tressi, second by Mr. Belestrea. Roll call on the motion to suspend.
Mrs. Teresi.
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta.
Yes.
Mr. Monaco.
Yes.
Mr. Mano.
Yes.
Mr. DeJohn.
Yes.
Mr. Balestria.
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder.
Yes. Is there a motion to approve? Moved by Mr. Mano, second by Mrs. Sabetta. We should all have received the cost of the project for the dispatch expansion. The cost of the furniture total is to be, it will be $65,607. Is there any further questions or comments from council? Okay, roll call on the motion to approve.
Mr. Balestria.
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta.
Yes.
Mrs. Teresi.
Yes.
Mr. DeJohn.
Yes.
Mr. Monaco.
Yes.
Mr. Mano.
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder.
Yes, this resolution has been adopted. Resolution 2022-41, Mr. Murphy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Resolution 2022-41, a resolution accepting a certain bid for salt and declaring an emergency. The proposed contractor is Morton Salt, Inc. First reading.
Is there a motion to suspend the rules? Moved by Mr. Mano.
Second.
Second by Mr. Balestrea. Roll call on the motion to suspend.
Mr. Monaco.
Yes.
Mr. DeJohn.
Yes.
Mr. Mano.
Yes.
Mr. Balestria.
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta.
Yes.
Mrs. Teresi.
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder.
Yes, is there a motion to approve?
Move.
Moved by Mr. DeJohn, second by Mrs. Sabetta. Mr. Brunello sent the bids for salt from Morton Salt Company. They submitted the lowest and best bid. The amount of $68.43 per ton for a piler truck delivery, or $58.43 per ton for a dump truck delivered. And it is his recommendation to go ahead with this quote. Mrs. Tressi.
Madam Chairman, do we know what we paid last year for salt per ton? Has it
Don't know
increased?
that.
Well,
Yeah,
that's a silly
Mrs.
question. Of
Scully.
course, it's increased.
I know, right?
I do. So last year, we paid, for the piler, it was 48.71 per ton, and for the dump truck, it was 44.21.
$20.
Yeah. Thank you.
So what was it for the piler? Piler was,
4871.
48, yeah.
wow, that went up. And then, 53, okay. Yeah, so the piler was more. Okay, thank you. Any further, Mr.
Just
Monaco?
a question. Is this an allocation that we have to take or just an order that we have to place? Because sometimes you have to accept so many tons of salt every year, or you won't be able to get any later. Am I wrong in saying that?
Mayor?
If my memory serves me right, we're on a contract with Morton where we don't have to take a specific amount, I believe. I'll double check that for you, though.
Thank you.
I don't think we're contracted for a certain amount. I'm almost positive, but I'll double check it for you.
Thank you.
Okay. Any further questions? Before the vote, were you going to figure out, or just email everyone the percentage difference, the increase?
I can email the increase.
Okay. All right, perfect. Thank you. All right, is there a motion, a roll call on the motion to approve?
Mrs. Sabetta.
Oh, I'm sorry. Hold on. Mr. Monaco?
No, it's, I'm sorry.
You sure?
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry. Roll call.
Mrs. Sabetta.
Yes.
Mr. Mano.
Yes.
Mr. Balestria.
Yes.
Mrs. Teresi.
Yes.
Mr. Monaco.
Yes.
Mr. DeJohn.
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder.
Yes. Resolution 2022-41 has been approved. Resolution 2022-42, Mr. Murphy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Resolution 2022-42, a resolution awarding a contract to CA Agresta Construction Company for the 2022 Road Program A1 in accordance with the bid specifications and declaring an emergency. First reading.
Is there a motion to suspend the rules? Moved by Mr. Mano, second by Mr. Monaco. Roll call on the motion to suspend.
Mr. Mano.
Yes.
Mr. Balestria.
Yes.
Mr. DeJohn.
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta.
Yes.
Mrs. Teresi. Mr. Monaco.
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder.
Yes. Is there a motion to approve?
Move.
Moved by Mr. Balestria, second
Second.
by Mrs. Teresi. Sealed bids were received for the 2022 Road Program A1 to CA Agresta Construction was the lowest and best bid for this project. The cost is a total of $1,597,404. Mr. Gerson reported in his report about this company and going with this construction company. Is there anyone that would like to ask any further questions or comments from council? Mrs. Teresi.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Can I just request, no, it's okay, Dan. I just wondered if you could make the charts just a little larger so that we can read them? I mean,
As you see, I have my glasses on. I need bigger glasses, but I'll
I
try to do
needed
it
my
better.
glasses and yours to read that.
I'll work on them and get them.
Maybe 11 by 17 and then fold it in half or something.
Yeah,
We're
what I'll
so
have to do
teeny.
is I'll have to break them up in sections and then email them. If you want, I can do that hopefully this week and email them to council with your
It's
permission.
okay. I mean,
so you
just-
see it,
That's fine. Mr.
if it'll
Balestria.
help you.
Mr. Gerson, when did they propose they could start work, once the bid is awarded? Did
So
Progressive
we
say?
we haven't spoken to them on this just because they haven't been awarded, and typically I don't ask them until they've been awarded. But I would suspect they're probably mid-July to start on these projects, would be my guess. But we broke them down a little bit, so they have some time to do them, so. But once they get started, we'll make sure they continue on. But I'll check with them. If you pass it tonight, I'll check with them tomorrow.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry.
Any further questions?
So teeny.
Roll call on the motion to approve.
Mr. DeJohn.
Yes.
Mr. Monaco.
Yes.
Mrs. Teresi.
Yes.
Mr. Balestria.
Yes.
Mr. Mano.
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta.
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder.
Yes. This resolution has now been approved. Resolution 2022-43, Mr. Murphy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Resolution 2022-43, a resolution authorizing the mayor to accept an Urban Area Security Initiative grant from the Cuyahoga County Emergency Services Advisory Board to assist in purchasing portable radios for the city's police department and declaring an emergency. First reading.
Is there a motion to suspend the rules? Moved by Mr. Mano, second by Mrs. Sabetta. Roll call on the motion to suspend.
Mrs. Teresi.
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta.
Yes.
Mr. Monaco.
Yes.
Mr. Mano.
Yes.
Mr. DeJohn.
Yes.
Mr. Balestria.
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder.
Yes. Is there a motion to approve? Moved by Mrs. Teresi, second by Mr. Balestria. This resolution is accepting a grant to assist in the purchasing of portable radios in the amount of $78,000 for the police department. I believe there would be an additional cost from the city at a later date to help with the rest of the purchase for these radios. This resolution is to just accept the bid for the grant. You heard from Chief Mealy, and if you have any further questions, council? Okay, roll call on the motion to approve.
Mr. Balestria.
Yes.
Mrs. Teresi.
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta.
Yes.
Mr. DeJohn.
Yes.
Mr. Monaco.
Yes.
Mr. Mano.
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder.
Yes. Resolution 2022-43 has been approved. We will now move to ordinances, beginning with 2022-19. Mr. Murphy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ordinance number 2022-19, an ordinance amending section 149.04 of the codified ordinances of the city titled Mandatory Retirement to reset the mandatory retirement date. First reading.
Is there a motion to suspend the rules?
Move.
Moved by Mr. Balistreo, second by Mr. DeJong. Roll call on the motion to suspend.
Mr. Monaco.
Yes.
Mr. DeJong.
Yes.
Mr. Mano.
Yes.
Mr. Balestrea.
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta.
Yes.
Mrs. Teresi.
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder.
Yes. Is there a motion to approve? Moved by Mr. Monaco, second by Mr. Balestrea. There was a change to the ordinance, striking out the area stating, "All full-time police officers and firefighters shall be required to retire from active employment with the city when they retire at age 65 years. Right now, safety personnel must retire on their 65th birthday. This would extend this to the end of the year that they turn 65, which can be extended for an additional 2 years with the discretion of the mayor." Is any comments from Mr. DeJong?
Who was asking for this? Is this the police and fire department, or is it the mayor, the safety director, and why is it being asked?
I'm going to defer this to the mayor. Or the safety director.
Switch hats.
Yes.
It's come to the attention of both the police department and the fire department that sometimes it's not in the best interest of the city or the employee to terminate directly on their 65th birthday. It gives the departments a little bit of wiggle room and some additional time to maybe make replacements or figure out personnel issues. So it just gives the department more, both departments, a little bit more flexibility in being able to determine who might not fit that 65-year-old, you know. Some guys are old 65 and some guys are young 65, like you, Mr. DeJong. So
That's exactly what I was thinking.
so it just gives them that flexibility to, you know, and it wouldn't be just, as we're thinking about it, not just the mayor's discretion, it would be in a discussion with the chiefs as to, you know, the employees' physical fitness and their ability to fulfill their job past that age of 65.
So I guess my question is, how are you going to avoid discriminating with that type of policy?
Chief, if you'd like to come up and speak, is
And-
that okay, Madam
and-
Chair? Yeah.
You know, I find it hard that a 65-year-old can, you know, chase down a perpetrator, right? So
Right, right.
that's what I'm thinking. So.
There's case law backing the city or, you know, cities that have this ordinance. We're not the only one. In fact, back in 2016, Cleveland had officers that challenged this, and it was upheld on the city's end by a federal court, the Sixth Circuit Court of Appeals. So there is case law backing the city having that right, that it doesn't fall under Age Discrimination Act due to the nature of the job. Actually, what we're asking for is that this goes to legislative committee before it's voted on to work out the fine tuning of what the ordinance would be and to get that committee's support on changing the ordinance. Myself and Chief Elliott have discussed what we feel would be in the best interest of both departments. We'd like to share that and get the opinion of the legislative committee.
Thank you. Mrs. Teresi?
So explain Section B that says, "Any other full-time employee of the city not presently provided for in subsection A shall retire from the city at the end of the month in which he or she attains the age of 70. Can someone explain that? Mr. Murphy?
Go ahead, Mr.
Everybody
Yeah,
else?
for anybody not in the safety forces, the mandatory retirement age is 70.
So, yeah, so it makes, I mean, if you work in recreation, you have to retire at 70.
Yes.
Interesting. Okay.
So at
But
this,
as the chief said, he would say that this should be referred to legislative so
Yes.
that it can be talked about by council. That's what we kind of anticipated would happen. It's just getting the ball rolling with regard to this, so.
Okay,
It would be proper to move, I would say, move the table and
Yeah.
then just, then refer it to legislative, whoever that is.
I agree.
okay, so at this time, I am going to move to table. I need a motion.
Move.
Moved by Mr. DeJohn, second by Mrs. Teresi. Roll call on motion to table.
Mrs. Sabetta,
Yes.
Mr. Mano,
Yeah,
Mr. Balestria,
Yes.
Mrs. Teresi.
Yes.
Mr. Monaco.
Yes.
Mr. DeJohn,
yes.
Mrs. Snyder.
Yes, this item has been tabled, so Mrs. Sabetta, if you can get a meeting together, that would be great. Just notify us. Mr. DeJohn.
Yeah, so I'd just like to see, when this ordinance was originally enacted,
Yeah,
and I'd
that's what I
like to
was
see
wondering.
that legislation for the meeting, since I'm on the legislative committee too.
It was
Okay.
1989.
I'd like to just see it, though.
I'm just saying that answers your question, and the original ordinance is what's being stricken.
You have the ordinance in
You've
front
got
of
it
you.
right in front of
The
you.
whole thing. It's in your packet.
Okay, then I'd like to see the ordinance before that, how it got changed to the current one.
So before 1989.
Correct.
Okay. If we can get that, provide that for the meeting. And then you'll just let us know, when it is. Perfect.
Yes.
Thank you.
Just have a comment.
Mr.
If
Monaco.
we're changing this for the police and fire department, should we consider also changing it for the other employees of the city?
So that's what we'll discuss in the legislative committee.
Exactly, right.
Yes.
Okay.
This will not go anywhere until it comes back to us after they've
Got it.
discussed
I'm
it.
just making a suggestion that I
Okay.
would also look at that.
Perfect. Okay. Thank you. All right. We are done with ordinances for this evening, so we will move to motions, beginning with motion A.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Motion to reject all bids received on May 31, 2022 for the 2022 Road Program A2 and authorizing rebidding the 2022 Road Program A2.
Is there a motion to approve?
Moved.
Moved by Mrs. Sabetta, second by Mr. Monaco. Mr. Gerson would simply like to rebid the 2022 Program A2 portion. Roll call on the motion to approve.
Mr. Mano,
Yes.
Mr. Balestria.
Yes.
Mr. DeJohn,
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta,
Yes.
Mrs. Teresi,
Yes.
Mr. Monaco.
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder.
Yes, this motion has been carried. Motion B.
Thank you, Madam Chair. A motion to authorize the solicitation of bids for renovation of the Mayfield Heights Police Dispatch Center.
Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Belstraya, second by Mrs. Tressi. This simply would start the process for the renovating which is a much-needed new police dispatch area.
Much needed.
So we all should have received what we had in our packet with some of the drawings. So roll call on the motion to approve.
Mr. DeJohn,
Yes.
Mr. Monaco.
Yes.
Mrs. Teresi.
Yes.
Mr. Balestria.
Yes.
Mr. Mano.
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta.
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder.
Yes, this motion has also been approved. At this time, I would like to entertain a motion to go into executive session to discuss economic development
And
and
property acquisition.
property acquisition. Move.
Move.
Roll call, or I need a motion.
Move.
Moved by Mr. DeJohn, second by Mr. Mano. Roll call,
Mrs. Teresi.
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta.
Yes.
Mr. Monaco.
Yes.
Mr. Mano.
Yes.
Mr. DeJohn.
Yes.
Mr. Balestria.
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder.
yes. It is 8:13, and we will now move into executive session. back to regular scheduled meeting. Is there any business, or comments from council? Right, I will entertain a motion to adjourn. Moved by Mr. Monaco, second by Mr. Balestreo. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you, everyone. We are now adjourned.